couple of years ago, I had a condo. I was selling my friend's parents' condo. They were moving out east, and I had a guy just attacking the price, and I was just being so polite. And my friend calls me, and he's like, how can you be that polite? And how are you coming up with these responses? I said, because it doesn't really matter. And then
it helps with their engagement, actually.
And then yeah, it does. Yeah, it does for 100% sure on that side. But after we sold it, he's like, you should message that guy and say that he was wrong. I said, what's the point? What's the point? That person was never going to buy. We just move on. Like why are we, wasting time? And so like one of the things that I'm trying to deal with is like,
everybody, welcome. It's David Chinelli, and this is DC Talks Podcast with episode number 47. We have a special guest with us today. I got my longtime friend and fellow realtor, Joey Walters, with me today. Hey, Joey.
Hey, how you doing, David? So happy to be here.
Hey, I'm happy you're coming. You finally got a chance to come.
finally, our schedules,
finally aligned.
Yes, for sure.
So a little bit about Joey and I. Joey and I have known each other for 3 or 4 decades, at least at this point. We were little goalies playing against each other in AAA hockey back in the day.
Yeah, definitely. We've known each other for a long time, played competitively against each other. And now, we're both realtors, and I feel like, part of our lives are very, very similar. So super happy to be here today and talk.
Yeah. So it was great when I got my license and started doing videos. And then all of a sudden, a few years ago, we saw you starting to pop up, and you reached out to me, and it was like, I think it was like, 4 or 5 years ago, I guess, when you were with Jesse and Joey, with the team, we had reached out, and it's like, and I'd love to see where you've come lately. But before we get into that, I just want to give a little bit of fodder, just let people know where you come from. So Joe, like, you've been a realtor for how long now?
Just over 5 years now.
Nice.
So 2018.
Enjoying it?
I love it. Love it.
And obviously you weren't a realtor before. What did you do before real estate?
Yeah. So before real estate, I was in HR and operations, got a lot into merger acquisitions, ran a company that did a lot of recruiting. I helped some small businesses sell their businesses. And so that's some of the stuff that I was doing before I became a realtor. But during the course of my career, like everybody kept telling me, like, you should be in sales. You're an entrepreneur, you're good at marketing. And so that's kind of why, morphed on to running my own business into now being in real estate.
So when people told you you'd be good in sales, I want to see if you had the same reaction. What was your reaction to when people said you'd be good in sales?
At first I'd be like, a little shocked, but then I could see why, because always early on in my career, I was really good at recruiting. I was really good at connecting with people. I was really good at explaining roles and companies and what we were looking for. And, sales is just really helping, people. And, maybe we'll get into it later, but I'll tell you, how I made my first sale before I actually even became a realtor. And it was on a plane, actually. So
okay, now you have to tell the story. You can't just lead people into that and say, hey.
Okay. So it was a February morning, freezing cold, flying from Toronto to Wisconsin.
And what were you doing? You're in the HR?
I was in HR. Yeah, I worked for a company called Train. Started chatting up with the gentleman beside me, and next thing you know, we're sitting beside each other on the plane. And he was head of procurement for a coffee roasting company. And he said that they were looking for, they were building this new facility, and they were looking for some, HVAC chillers and so forth. And I started talking to him about our first chiller, and we exchanged numbers. I got back, talked to my VP of sales. We went out and have lunch, and, lo and behold, 8 months later, they purchased 3 centrifugal chillers just based on my conversation, which is kind of propelled me into my sales career, because after that, I was interested in merger acquisitions, bringing companies and really recruiting. That's why I started my own business after getting out of industry.
Tell me you got paid for that at least.
No, I didn't.
I knew it.
I didn't. But I think great experience, and money comes after you help people, right? So it's not about the money, but the experience of that and how I can tell that story. I think this lets me prove to myself that I can help out people, and even though I wasn't really doing that at the time.
Yeah. So when did you decide to finally make the switch to real estate? Were you doing it part-time, or what was the decision?
Yeah. So what really, the big decision was, I went through a divorce, and my parents also sold their house. And I just felt that, I was so much involved in the process and in the direction of what was going on. That, real estate was always very, very interested in it. And I wanted to, make investments and so forth. And so I said, like, why can't I use my people skills? And people say that I'm good at sales and I'm good at marketing and I'm good at recruiting. Like, this is something that I'm very passionate about, and kind of moved into it because, I just took the lead on my parents' sale of their house and the sale of my matrimonial home when I was going through a divorce, and really directing, how we should do the pricing, how it should look, and so forth. So, it's a big transaction. And so it's something that I really wanted to get involved in because I felt like I could bring a professional level, a level of talking with your heart, and really helping out people during, a very emotional time, which is buying and selling, as we can see, especially now in this market.
Yeah. So I guess you were doing it part-time for a bit, and that's what happened? Or
I did it part-time for a bit, just as I was transitioning out of my other business,
right.
Because I had some responsibilities and so forth. I mean, I still have people reach out to me for some consulting stuff. They just want my opinion on things, but no, 100%, focused on real estate right now. So
yeah, and now it's addictive.
it is very addictive, right? And how much effort you got to put into it, and your discipline and so forth, right?
So with the divorce, how did you find did that help you become a realtor? Was there the pushback from maybe the other side, like, your ex, or your family members, or is it all like, okay, well, I'm divorced, I'm okay? Like, how did that play into your decision?
Yeah, for me, it was just like I had to take initiative, and like this is a big financial asset. This is going to help determine my kid's future, and I have to get involved and explain, what price we should be at, and we went with a higher price before, and I was trying to explain, to that person that, like we want to move forward, right? I get we want as much money, but we also want to move forward, and we don't want to be in the same house anymore. And then also outside of that, it was just like, are we doing open houses? Like are we, how are we going to promote it? And so I just felt like I had to take the initiative and do the analysis and so forth. And then when we actually repriced it to the price that I thought, we sold within, 2 weeks. Outside of that, I was like, like, what are you going to tell people if they ask why we're selling, right? And they're like, well, what do you want me to tell them, right? And, for me, a lot of times when I'm dealing with divorced couples, like, people don't want that because people, especially in this market, will prey on that, right? I have to say, hey, listen, they decided to downsize, they decided to move closer to family, and just kind of just move off that, right? Because you don't want, the buyers to try to take an advantage of the sellers during a very emotional time, especially, it's their big asset. And that this plays like huge onto people's minds, going through that time. So yeah, that's kind of what led me into, that, saying like, wow, like if I could do this with my own property, like I didn't say I knew everything, but like this got me really, really involved in understanding the markets and so forth.
Yeah. And then I was saying after that, so when you decided to get your license, was there pushback from your family members or anybody else? Was like, or was it more of like,
I think people always push back and say, why do you want to do that? They're 24/7. What do people
there's
really
70,000 of us, like, you just have to be a cog in the wheel. Yeah. I get that.
What, people think of realtors. And my whole point is I don't care what somebody else thinks about realtors or anything. When they get to know the value that we provide and who I really am, and they want to work with me, they'll move past that, because it's just really about, helping people and really understanding and using, your expertise, your analytics, and everything that goes along with buying and selling and investing.
Yeah. Well, it seems like you're very strong-minded, that kind of like where somebody going through divorce is not always has that strong mind. Like, where did that come from? Like, where did you get based on that? Were you always positive of that? Because, hey, listen, after a divorce, a lot of people are like, woe is me, like the world, everybody hates me. Like, they wouldn't be jumping into a new career thinking that I'm the best, my relationship, which has just failed with my wife. How am I going to make this work? That's what a lot of people will go to. They'll go to the negative. But you seem like you went to the positive. What helped?
I mean, listen, I don't think I'm always positive. I did have my times that I was down on myself. I wanted to quit. I speak to a lot of my friends that they can't believe some of the stuff that I've been through, and they say they wouldn't be able to get through it. But I think, every point of my life, and I think you do this, is that we go back to time in our life when we succeeded at something, and I try to rest on that. And so I go back to hockey, like resiliency, being in pressure situations, doing that next rep, working out, trying to get into shape, trying to make that team, and just have that perseverance and grit, right, to really push through. And so you can't always think about what can go wrong. You got to think about what's going right. But I've been on a huge self-development journey ever since my divorce. Like, why did it happen? What do I need to do to change? I've been very, very tough on myself. I know you have too. And so it's just really coming from a place of love and really accepting myself for who I am, and really following, God's word, and this moving forward with that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's huge. I think a lot of it is the mental, right? And I think that a lot of people don't get, and I get how much sports playing at a high level. I don't know how many goalies that we've or number of brokers we've talked to that become realtors and they become successful, or people play at a high level. I think that exactly what you said. I think because we come from a place of very competitive to get into an industry where it's highly competitive. Again, we're dealing with 70,000 realtors out there, right? Like every time we go to any sort of interview, you're up against 70,000 other people. So when somebody wants to become a realtor, I say that to them. I'm like, okay, when you go to a job interview, you might be up against 100 people, 1,000 people. We're up against 70,000 every single time. Again, they're all over all over Toronto, but again, you have to be competitive. You have to have that edge. And I think that's what we excel at. I think, would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. And if you look at our positions, like every time a goalie makes a mistake, it's up on the board, even if it was a great shot, right? Unlike a D-man or a forward and so forth. So the pressure that we had, or at least that I put on myself was tremendous. Like, I used to put so much pressure on myself. I don't even know if you know this, David, that I would almost throw up before every single game, and that would put me into my mindset. I used to make myself sick before every single game. And, it played.
It probably didn't help that I beat you a lot of times.
Yeah. Yeah. So very, heavily put so much pressure on myself. And, that led to a lot of the anxiety that I had later on in life, and always trying to put pressure on myself and always trying to be perfect. And I'm an extremist. Like when I go into something, it's 100%. And it's all this and nothing else. Whether, when I got into golf, into this real estate game, I have to kind of back off and just understand and trust and surrender to God and myself. But I can work 24/7 and it's not good, right? So you got to find your own balance. But yeah, the pressure, definitely that I put myself in comes from hockey, the resiliency, the perseverance, 100%.
But also gives you a kind of a sense, because we've also excelled at what we're really done. Like the level we came from, I don't think people realize back when we played. So we were both born 1978.
Yes.
So we played AAA hockey here in the GTA. There was only 8 teams, which means we're both goalies. There's only 16 goalies for all of our age group. So we had to be on your game, because there was people throughout everybody. Like there was all these other goalies always trying to take our positions. So we come from a level where people are always nipping at your heels. You always have to perform. You're always having, because you're like getting sent down to the lower level was imminent. Like it always happened. You fuck up enough times, it's going to happen to you. And it's happened to some of our colleagues. So I think that also helps us mature as adults. And listen, sometimes people get sent down. They get to the AA, and it's like, you also learn from that, right? Again, it's like, 100%. I think there's learning experience throughout sports. And that's why I would love for my kids, although my oldest daughter doesn't want to, is not athletic at all. Our little one a little bit more, but I would always encourage parents to get them involved in some sort of activity, which you can fail, because I think if you're excelling at it, when you've accomplished something, it gives yourself a sense of worth.
Yes.
And then when you fail at something, it's like, well, it's not the end of the world. What did you learn from it? Right? How can we excel? How can you change? And I think that's the takeaways that we get from it too, even playing the level we played at.
Yeah, 100%. It was very, very competitive. Like you said, 8 teams. And so, we were on the ice, 5-6 times a week.
And in high school, 8 times a week when I played on 2 teams.
Yeah, and trying to balance, school with that and marks and so forth. So, a lot of pressure as a young adult. And a child, right? Traveling, the commitments that our parents, financially put with that in time, like it's something that I'm forever grateful, for them. But yeah, I agree. Like, I think parents need to put their kids into some type of correct activity, but that child's got to want to do it.
That's right.
And so like for me being that parent, like I see a lot of parents out there, they put too much pressure on their kid. They want it for themselves and not for the child, right? Like you're trying to, let them learn failure. And so like we think failure is bad in this society, right? Like you look at the school system, like, oh, you got 80% or you got 50%. Like it's always failure, and failure is bad, but you learn from failing, right? So fail forward. So like, what did you learn from it, and how can you change from it is so imperative, I think. Yeah, because in school you study for a test and you learn before. In life, you have your test first and then you learn after.
I agree. And then those people that fail to learn will continue to fail, make the same mistakes over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's not good, but yeah.
Whereas school is you just fail a test, you just, okay, what's our next lesson? And do they move on? It doesn't happen in life. So I mentioned briefly how you reached out to me, was it about a year, maybe after we started the podcast, and you're like, man, like our lives are parallel. Like, what did you mean by that? Like,
so like, so much. I mean, I've known David for like we said before, for like over 40 years. And it's just so much similarities with, finding God, his work ethic, the same business, how you think about things, how you parent your kids. Like I like when you speak, it's like it's me, and like it freaks me out. At first I was like, man, like we're more similar than you even know, like to the point, like, we like the same type of scotch, cigars, like all this thing is so much similar. I was just like, how can a guy that I've known for so many years not and we're so similar, but yet we don't talk all the time, right? So it just really
I'm getting
amazing
chills right now. Like we hadn't talked before this probably for 20 years, I guess.
Yeah,
right? I guess the last time we might have played against it, we're like, maybe 16, 17 years old, and then when like talking about their 30s and like our 40s, actually, we're talking again. It's remarkable how we've went totally different journeys in our lives, and we're very similar. It's kind of funny how that works out.
It's amazing, and it's good. I think men need to have people around them that are very supportive and very, very similar, and push, and where you can actually show your emotion. I think a lot of that is missing in today's society, and it's something that's, I'm so grateful that we're this close now. So
well, it's funny, you message me at least once a week, and what do you say to me?
I love you.
And I love you too, man. And it's funny because it's like, again, we talked to Owen's behind here too. And it was like the first time I told Owen I loved him. And he was just like, so I get a little emotional when I say that, because I like to tell the people that, and we talked about this before, when you have a connection with somebody, it's like, tell them, tell them, let 100%. Them know that. And it's like, we went for dinner, a little while ago, probably in the summertime. And we were talking, we had a long night that night. It was night. We talked a lot. And it was just like, I was absolutely had a connection.
Yes.
If I was gay, maybe we would have been dating.
I don't know about that, but no, I love you, but not that way. There's different forms of love.
But no, you know what I mean? Because we had a connection, so it was funny. But anyway, it was great to see that way. And I always watched your videos too, and it was like, oh, it's funny too. We talk about the same stuff too. And then when I started getting, like, you were doing more at the time. And you're branching out to more of the things that are affecting you. Like, I remember the one time you talked about your divorce and how it affects as a buyers, and like, you talk about that. I'm like, this is awesome. Because a lot of times you're just talking about real estate stuff, but I think now, like, you're reaching out, and the idea for that is like, and we talked about this too, and I love the fact that you are showing your emotional side to it.
Yeah.
And I have conversations, I don't know if you get this all the time, but I have conversations with my friends that are like, wow, you put everything out there. And I said, yeah. I'm like, when it comes to business, the reason why we do these podcasts, we want to get people to know who I am. I could talk about the X's and O's of real estate all day long, but it gets boring after a while. Let's be honest. It's the same stuff over and over again. It's like, if you want to talk specifics, great. We get into it. Like, don't get me wrong. I love real estate and the dynamics change, but as a listener, there's only so many times you can tell, like, the different strategies how to sell a house. Whereas, I think I took this from Ryan Serhant, where he says, people hate to be sold to, but they love shopping with their friends.
Yes.
So the idea was, it's like, well, I wanted to get people to know who I am here and up here. And when I saw you doing the same kind of stuff too, and I'm like, this is amazing. I loved it. I love that I get to know you. And I started to get to know you when you messaged and I started to watch your stuff, because your stuff pops up on my feed all the time.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was already connected even more with you.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I think, today's day, your brand is who you are. And you got to show who you are. I mean, I could sit there, I can get analytical, I could talk about every single market, how much months of inventory, but to your point, people don't care about that all the time, but people do business with people that they like and that they trust, and they like and they trust you when you start talking about yourself. One of the things that I started doing lately, because I'm on this fitness journey, is I ruck in the morning, and basically I put like a weighted vest or a weighted backpack on, and I walk, and I've been really expressing God's word, and people are like, do you really want to be doing this? And I'm like, God's telling me to do this, right? Mm-hmm. And if people don't like it, I get it. People are part of different religions. They don't have to, believe in what I believe in, but like, this is what I truly feel I need to be doing right now. So like, for me, it's about my fitness journey. For me, it's about, what I like, golf, my children, it's things that I love, and this really trying to give back to people on this self-development journey that we all should be going through. And what am I learning, and how to educate people through that, and what I truly believe in, right? So it can't always be real estate. It's got to be about you and what you want. And it's walking that road, and you're going to be for some people, you're not going to be for everybody, right? But there's 8 billion people on this planet, right? I'm not going to sell to everybody. I'm not going to talk to everybody. So like, I'm okay with that. And, I don't know about you. I do get hatred, and I embrace it, right? I say, hey, thank you for your comment, or I'll respond in a very professional, polite way, and come from a place of love, and just move on, right? It doesn't affect me anymore.
Well, I was talking to Owen about this this morning. We came in, we were talking about that. It was on one of the clips, and we were just talking about the Pope, and this guy was just attacking me. And I was like, listen, I'm like here, like, I kind of gave clips and like actual things what the Catholic Church has said is like, this is where I'm getting my information from. And he just started to throw hate, like, oh, you don't know nothing. And you started attacking me as a character. And I'm like, okay. And I just stopped the conversation. I'm like, okay, thanks again. It's like, there's some people, they want to antagonize you. They just want to get after you. And it's like, there's only so much you can do. And again, to not affect you up here. But that also affects us in real estate as well. Like, I have a good friend of mine named Uma, and she wasn't always great at putting stuff on the internet. She was always like worried about putting on stuff on Facebook. And I think it was about a year ago. And she put this house up for sale, and people are like, well, what's the price, right? So she put the price, and she was getting lambasted. What the F are you thinking? Are you crazy? Stupid realtors throwing a price up. And she was like taking it personally. I'm like, Uma, these are people that most of them can't afford the houses. So they're mad. They're just latching on. You can't take this hard. This is what happens on social media. Everyone's like, they call the keyboard warrior, they're all buying the keyboards, hiding and stuff too. And it's like, did you price the house right? Yes. Did it sell? Yes. Then what are you worried about?
Yeah.
Not everybody's going to like you. Not everyone's going to be happy. Not everybody's happy with themselves. And when people are not happy with themselves, they lash out.
100%. I see that all the time. And I think, we got to come from a strong place, again, from love. Even though it's difficult at times, because, that there is hatred towards realtors and towards certain people that have their opinion online. And we got to remember that these people are dealing with things, and they're dealing with their own resistance or demons or whatever it is. And they're lashing out at other people because they don't know how to channel it. Right. Mm-hmm. And so, the power of the tongue is very, very, it can either give you fruit or it can cause death. And so, like, it's right in the Bible. I think it's Proverbs. But just, 100%, like, how do you handle those situations? So a couple of years ago, I had a condo. I was selling my friend's parents' condo. They were moving out east, and I had a guy just attacking the price, and I was just being so polite. And my friend calls me, and he's like, how can you be that polite? And how are you coming up with these responses? I said, because it doesn't really matter. And then
it helps in their engagement, actually.
And then it does. Yeah, it does for 100% sure on that side. But after we sold it, he's like, you should message that guy and say that he was wrong. I said, what's the point? What's the point? That person was never going to buy. We just move on. Like why are we, wasting time? And so, like, one of the things that I'm trying to deal with is, like, I'm going to let people that are not, don't think like me win an argument, and I'm just going to move on, because what's the point of winning an argument if we're not here to win arguments anyways, but what's the point of trying to get somebody to think like you? Like, that's not within our realm of dealing with it. So, like, just move on. Like, just let it go.
Yeah, we've talked, like, I've said this before, and I think we talked before about saying about, even when it comes to Christianity, And in the beginning, I was like, when I learned about conspiracy theories and how it affected with God and the devil and the Bible and how everything, and I would tell people, and I was just trying to push. And I was like, it wasn't going anywhere. So this,
Yeah.
and my wife would always sit back and she's like, Dave, you can't force people. And that's what we read to about the Holy Spirit. It said, listen, it's not our job to convince people. Like, listen, they'll come in. Like, you can just open up your heart, and that's all we're doing, right? Yeah. Well, even when I get attacked for the things we talk about on this show, for our conspiracy stuff, in which, again, we venture to say nothing on those. I've repeated this about 1 million times, but people just don't want to change, or they're really angry. It's part of their journey as well. We also have to realize that when somebody resists that much, they may be stuck on that part of their journey, the anger part.
Yeah.
They need to move on from that too. Otherwise they don't grow and change. But it's also not up to us to force somebody to change.
100%. Everybody's on their own journey, right? I just had this recently happen to me, family situation. I would have came from it from, the flesh instead of the spirit in the past. And what I mean by that, I would have attacked this person. I would have said, how could you be doing this and so forth. And I stayed firm, but I was very coming from a place of love. And then I just prayed to God, let it be. And lo and behold, 3 days later, everything was solved because I knew it was going to be solved. Like I felt it was be solved. And it's so tough for me because I'm the type of person that I'm an extremist. Like I'm going to make 15 calls and I'm going to set one appointment with somebody, or I'm going to post this much content and this is going to happen. Right. And so I'm really learning how to just trust my actions, feel like it's already done, think like, I've already grown my business. I'm already helping coach men. I'm doing all these things like it's already done, and just putting in the actions and showing up every day. And it's tough for me because you and I, we grew up playing hockey. Like, so, you practice this move and then you get really good at it and then you perform in a game, right? But life doesn't work like that.
Yeah. No, not at all. So we've touched on before how, with your Christian journey, and you, obviously quoted a couple of times from the Bible.
Yeah.
When did your Christian journey start?
It started after, listen, I've always believed in God, but really, I would say it started happening in April 2021, right? Sitting there Easter weekend, people were sick. Was going through, a situation with my daughter, and this movie comes on, and I'm watching it, and I'm just like, wow, like, and then I end up buying the book, right? It's about a boy who dies and sees God, and his father's a pastor, and I end up.
I've seen that one. What's the name of the movie?
Trying to think of it off the top of my head.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Now you're gonna make me think.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, me and Christian listened to the audiobook, and like Christian was blown away. Christian's my son, and it's like Heaven is for Real. That's the name of the book. And so that just propelled me into my journey, and it continues to show up in so many different facets all the time. And so it's so funny when we're praying and we're going through all this, like we're always looking for our signs, but God doesn't work that way. He works in his signs, right? And so you just got to let it happen to you. So like he was doing a lot of things for me, and I look back. So it started with that to, reading the Bible every day on the Bible app, praying, being more open to what's going on. And what really, really shocked me, but upset me at the same time, was I went to Catholic school, and half the stuff that I'm learning now, or 90% of it, we never got taught, which is so upsetting to me, right? And everything in this book, whether you want to argue another religion, has so many pretenses and has so many learning lessons on how to treat people, how to grow your business, how to act in every single situation. And so it's just so powerful. Like you can use it for everything for... it has everything in that book. It's just amazing.
Well, the funny thing is that to me, I don't consider it a book.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I believe it's God's word. It's written in a book. It looks as a book, but there's,
I understand.
And I don't like when people argue like, how do you just listen to a book, or how do you follow a book? I'm like, well, you look at self-help books all the time, and I'm like, this is like a different guide. And I find that God talks to us very much more through our prayer, reading the book. Because I think Noah and I were talking about this the other day, and it was like I was asking a question, I had prayed about it, and I finished my prayer, and I was looking through the passage because I read at least a couple of chapters from the Old Testament, a couple of chapters from the New Testament every morning. And literally the question was there. It was a question I had, I was having an argument with my brother. I still have this argument with my brother, and I was trying to figure out how to react to it. And he told me, and he said, listen, he goes, explain to your brother. And I literally said brother, because we're talking about your brother in Christ or something, and said, and how he reacted, and how it offended you, and then forgive him. And it's up to that person to come up to you at that point, but you've done your Christian duty. He's saying, like, instead of just not holding a grudge, and I don't know, like, I was like, oh my God, like, literally answered my prayer. So like, how do you say there's a book? And it's like, so there's so many cool things about the Bible that people don't know about. Yeah. Like, like there's over 300 prophecies about Jesus Christ's life in the Old Testament. So people say like, well, what's the difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament? Like, well, the New Testament. So I've sit down with my kids.
Yes.
And I tried to explain this to my kids, because I didn't put them in Catholic school because I didn't want them to basically go through all these sacraments after which they don't know anything about and just hate religion. I didn't want them to do that. Yeah. I didn't want them to go through us, because I went through like life asking questions and asking questions and asking questions, and no one had an answer. It's like, and their only answer was like, oh, that's how God works. I'm like, no, like that's not how God works. Like that's it's just the stupidest answers, right? So I sat down with my kids and I'm like trying to explain to them about what the Bible is. I'm like, 66 books. It's broken into two things, the Old Testament and the New Testament, two books in reality. But I said, the cool thing, guys, is that the Old Testament has over 300 prophecies about Jesus' life that he fulfills. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, dude, we're prophets to explain that. And then we open up to Matthew, and we're in the second, and I was explaining this to him. And then within the first chapter, I think it was 5 prophecies in which he fulfilled in the first chapter. And I was like, and Mila was just looking at me, and she started like, he's not the out of the 2 kids, like the older one's not the better student. Okay. But she was just absorbing this. And I was like, holy crap. Like this, like she was willing to accept it. And it's just funny how that portrayed. But yeah, anyway, I just find that it's not just a book. And it was like, even like when I open it up and we talk to the kids, you can see how it works, right?
Yes.
And again, there's a lot of people who will watch this and like, what do you, and I have this comment at the time, like, why does a realtor talking about this? Like, why do we need to know about this? And I'm like, that's me. Like, that's getting to know me. This is part of my journey. This is where we're from.
Yeah. But if they don't want to listen to that part, or they don't want to think, they don't have to watch you, right? Which people don't watch sports. People don't watch certain shows. They move on to what they like, right? Yeah. To your point. Yeah. I guess you're 100% right. It's not a book, is, all these scriptures and so forth. But like, I put something down there the other day, like that talks about discipline, right? It talks about discipline in scripture. It talks about how to deal with difficult people. Like, you can't force them to do things, and that you just got to let them be and handle it. But I have a question for you.
Sure.
Right? I was watching something the other day, and they're talking about, Jesus's name and Yeshua and stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah. So do you
I pray to Yeshua?
Yeah.
No, we still use the name Jesus.
Okay.
I'll say Yeshua sometimes too, because when it comes, we know his name, but obviously it's like Yeshua is actually a translation from Joshua. Yes. And I think that's why they translated Yeshua. They're all versions of each other.
Yeah.
So if I called you Joe or I called you Joey, or Joseph.
Yeah.
So to me, it's still the same name. Where I know you said that to me, and I've seen the clip before.
Yeah.
Where he's like, well, that's not his name. His name is Yeshua. And I'm like, yeah, but like, God looks at your heart.
100%. So,
like for example, I have a friend of mine, his name is Eduardo, but his middle name is Antonio. Some people call him Antonio, some people call him Eduardo.
Yeah.
It's still the same person. He knows who you're talking to. 100%. So if you call me, if I had 2 names, I would still know it's you.
Yeah.
I try to do the more, when I'm conscious about it, I try to, or when I think about it, I say Yeshua, but people don't know who that is, right? So it's easier for me to explain to my kids about Jesus, because Jesus' name is everywhere.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So we have to start wrapping up. The half an hour just flew by.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been pretty quick. It's always good. Like you said, we're both talkers, so we can talk another hour.
I'm sure.
So from your journey from start to finish, whether it's real estate or life, for one takeaway, if somebody's just tuning in the last minute here, what is a life lesson or real estate lesson that you would want to leave them with?
Yeah, I think people, you just got to really keep your promises to yourself, go really deep and be your authentic self. When you're doing that, you're vibrating high, you're walking your own path, and it could be a difficult path, but that's the path that you need to take. Because, like I always say, if you do the tough things in life, your life will get easier. And if you always want to take the easy route out, the ill-chosen route, your life will get tougher. So just be authentic and do what makes you happy and follow your path.
That's amazing advice. It's amazing. All right, brother, we're so happy you came.
Thank you.
If somebody wants to follow along with you, what's the best way for them to reach out or to follow you?
I'm on all the socials, but like my Instagram is at Joey Walters Real Estate. So yeah, follow.
You're also on TikTok.
Yes, I'm also on TikTok too. Yes, I think it's JW Real Estate on TikTok.
I'm David V. Chinelli _realtor. I think that's on my Instagram, I believe. I don't even know what my TikTok is, but I don't know.
I don't know. I just follow you.
Yeah, exactly.
And you pop up all the time.
There you go. That's the idea. Thanks again for everybody tuning in. Thank you again from our lovely, our lovely guest, Joey Walters again.
Thank you so much for having me, David. It was a great chat. Loved coming on.
And if you guys like this, obviously we want you to like, subscribe, share with your friends. The more listeners we have, the more, fodder, the more topics we have to talk about. We'd love to hear your feedback. So we appreciate everybody following along. So please like and subscribe. We'll talk soon. Bye for now.